Aloha, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I wanted to share with you a bit about my own story because it's kind of been a roundabout way, and yet in the end it makes sense. So my life has been very much a journey of faith and expanding awareness and amazing relationships. And an example of that is when I was in high school, I wanted my teachers to connect the subjects. I actually went around and bugged them about it, rather than separate all the subjects as if they weren't related at all. And that's kind of how my life goes. I always see the connections and the relationships between things, even if it doesn't make sense until later. And what I mean by that is that metaphor has huge significance in my life. And it's a great way for me to express the relationships, often subtle, that I see. And the other layer of it is that it isn't just the relationships that I see between different things that are going on, but it's the amazing relationships with people that people have just come into my life in these powerful, beautiful ways and really opened up my eyes and my understanding to more and more and more that was possible. And those are my favorite ahas. I absolutely love aha moments. And that's one of the sweet things about coaching someone, is that I get to share in their aha moments. And that's just so powerful. So to get into my story, I'm going to ask you to just bear with me for a minute, because my life has been kind of a roundabout sort of journey, and yet coaching brings it together. And I'll share with you how that works for me. So when I was little, nature was my sanctuary. My mom tells stories about how I was always wandering off, and they actually had to tie me up when I was little. Of course, that was a generation ago where putting your kid on a harness wasn't a creepy kind of thing. It was something you did to keep your kids safe. And we lived always on the edge of the wilderness, and so that was awesome for me because it was always luring me out, and never wanted to come in at night. It was always fun. So nature is my sanctuary, my spiritual home. And so it perfectly made sense that I would study environmental science and biology at the University of Waterloo. And so I went on from there. I worked in labs, I worked in nature centers. I loved working with the kids, and I also did a lot of research. Worked in herbariums and worked with all kinds of processes to learn more. And I actually specialized in botany. And from there I moved on to manage a team for the Museum of Natural Science. And the team was creating educational materials. So from all of that, what I understand is how much work goes on behind the scenes to educate people about how nature works. That's not everyone's focus, and they're busy focused on other things in their life. And yet nature has such a profound effect on our lives, whether we're paying attention to it or not. And the other thing that I recognized was just how immense the issues were. And that was 40 years ago. We're like much further down the line, and there's new issues that nobody had even imagined in the 70s. And the ability of some of those issues to just stop everything if we don't pay attention to them is pretty staggering. And so I was really passionate to make a difference with that, because it was my sanctuary. And besides, where are you going to live? We haven't figured out how to get to other planets yet, so we better learn how to do with this one. I also learned about leadership a little bit. I wasn't a mom. I didn't really know much about leadership. I just led from my heart. And it worked out pretty cool. I took a stand for some things with my team that were unusual for the time, and those were things I was really proud of. Then I moved into managing associations, because it's still about the people who are going to make the changes. And I was actually invited to become the founding president of the Waterloo Alumni Association, natural extension from being at Waterloo. And from that, what I know is what it takes for anyone to be a founder. And basically I was handed a list from the university when computer printouts were like this and big sheets of paper. Maybe some of you remember that. And it was 2,000 names. And the assignment was to grow it into an active organization for a big annual dinner. The goal was 300 people at the Shadow Laureate in 6 months. Well, we pulled it off. And the first thing that I learned was, you can't do that by yourself. You got to build a team. And then the teams had to have teams to make that kind of thing happen. It had to be upscaled to make it work really fast. And upscaling is something that I hear now all the time. But it was very cool to learn that that's part of leadership, is don't expect that you can do it by yourself. What I had no idea about then was how to hand that over to the teams. And that was an education for me, for sure. And then from there, I was invited to be the managing director of the Family Business Association. I was married. I married into family business. And what I learned from that was how important it is to have a succession plan, not only for the founder, but for the things at work, so that you can pass the baton on in a gracious way that is always preparing the next generation of leadership. As soon as you come in, you're focusing on your team. You're not focusing ever on the leader. It just never works that way, and people, that's not leading, actually. So I came to understand what it was like to work with big groups of people and how that all worked. After my divorce, I decided it was time for me to do my own work. And so I started to study personal healing, and it was amazing. It, again, was remarkable people coming into my life, opening up new ideas and new potentials for what was actually possible for my own life. And I studied over 20 different modalities, and I eventually found my home in the Hawaiian worldview. And the reason I absolutely love the Hawaiian worldview is that it's so kind and it's so connected to nature. And yet it has this deep spiritual quality to it that's not particularly religious, but it's connected to everything in terms of how spirit infuses everything. And that made total sense for me, and I felt completely at home there. And so I specialized in deep transformational work, deep rites of passage work. From that, what I know is how much work it takes for the individual to really engage their own personal change, both physically and emotionally and mentally and spiritually, and how that all comes together. And I know that there are moments where it requires great faith and great courage to dive in the deep end, to go through the rapids. And it helps so much to have someone be there to say, there's this beautiful calm pool at the other end of the rapids, there's this incredible joy, there's this incredible aha waiting for you. If you just have the courage to dive in, to go through the storm, and there'll be that bright dawn. And again, another metaphor. But very much deep personal work and transformational work has moments like that. And it has moments where it's really easy. From there, while I was doing that healing work, and I actually did that for over 10 years, and I had over 1,000 clients, and I had the privilege to share what I loved with close to 100 students, and 4 of my apprentices have gone on to be absolutely amazing teachers, and now I would actually go back to any of them and learn what they've learned since then, which is really exciting. And that kind of leadership is really exciting, to say, it's not about me, here's what I've learned, you take it, you add your flavor, and in a little while, I'm going to come and learn from you too. Because we all bring in our own intuition and our own messages. So that's the kind of leadership that I've come to really respect. And while I was working with all of those healing modalities, I discovered a mystery school. Now, since I love relationships and I love metaphors, it was a treasure trove. It was like opening up Aladdin's cave and saying, here is how the universe works behind the scenes. Here are the ancient mystery teachings. And it was like, oh, this is real? I can actually learn this? I can play with this? I can work with this? It's like, whoa. And I just dove in. So 10 years later, I'm part of the leadership. I'm a senior teacher in the school. And I figure I have found my life purpose, and this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. And it has all the pieces that I think I need to have an absolutely amazing, powerful life and really contribute to a lot of people. And then everything blew up into a million smithereens. I don't know if you've ever had anything come at you out of left field and just completely beyond all reason and sense, just knock you flat and just leave you feeling like you've got nothing to go on but your faith that there's got to be another sunrise, because you just feel so freaking lost. And that was what happened to me. I chose because I ran into a values confrontation with the new administrator of the school. And to protect my values-driven purpose, I chose to leave. And I quit teaching, and I quit traveling, and I went into shock. And a lot of stuff got swept out of my life at that time. But I felt like my maps got swept away too. My world went from color to black and white. Not quite physically, but it sure felt like that. And I felt like I'd failed. And that everything I had believed in, everything I had invested in, I wasn't sure about it anymore. And what was worst of all with the shock, my intuition completely shut down. I couldn't see any relationships. I was just going on trying to be practical, doing what people were telling me to do. And that was kind of keeping me alive and keeping me going, but it felt so empty. Maybe you had that feeling. And I decided the only thing that I could do was let my heart lead me. I couldn't see any idea of which direction to go. And my heart took me back to nature. And over again, my heart took me back to nature. And there I met some amazing people who saw who I was and had faith in me and encouraged me. And having people believe in me actually brings up even more emotion than just feeling lost. Because it's that kindness. It's huge. It's priceless. So I invested 7 years of my life in trying to figure it out on my own. Now anybody who knows me will say, yep, she's stubborn. And I would say, well, maybe stubborn, maybe just tenacious. Because I knew that my life was worth more than that. I knew that, and I trusted, that I was meant to be contributing. I didn't know what that looked like anymore. But I kept going back to nature, and I kept finding that sense of peace again. And then one day, I realized that my best thinking was not getting me out of it. And in that moment, I was just wondering what it might look like to actually ask for help. My intuition turned on, and it bubbled up this little idea that had been rattling around the back of my head for 25 years. And I reached out to a longtime friend and I asked about coaching. And he said, well, come on over and we'll talk about it. And kind of as they say, the rest is history, although I'm still writing that history, my life just lit up again. And I got personal coaching with my friend for 9 months. And then I was so excited when he said, you know, why don't you think about actually becoming a coach? I was like, I could do that. I could do that. And so I trained with him for 9 months, and I still train with him, and he's still my personal coach. And then I began to train with his coach mentor as well. And bringing it home and kind of wrapping my story up as I kind of finish up sharing what I want to share with you today was the value of the coaching was the amazing people who believed in me when I wasn't really sure how to find my way. I was just taking step after step after step, following my heart. And every time I lit up, they'd be that's what you want to follow. And I'd be like, really? And like, yeah, that's where you light up. It's like, that's what you need to follow. And I was like, okay, cool, I can do that. Of course, it's more fun to go where you feel like you're alive. But it also required me to do my own healing work and go through the rapids and face those fears. But at least I was familiar with that. Right? So I knew that there was light at the end of those rapids, so to speak. So I wasn't so afraid of it. And I was able to be with myself going through those moments the way I'd been through with so many of my clients. And so as a coach, I'm like, how do I want to contribute? Who can I contribute to the best? And for me, with my journey through all of those different kinds of leadership, what's most important to me is sharing my values, those values that have always been there for me, of stewardship, beyond just protecting the environment or creating sustainability, which we desperately need, but actually to get to the stage where our environmental leaders aren't having to fight for those things. They're actually taking on roles where they're taking on stewardship roles, and they're caring for that stuff, and they're respected and esteemed, and they don't need to feel like they're confronting anybody, that they're respected, and because they make a big difference and they take care of stuff that all of us need, like air and water and a beautiful place to go and relax when we're stressed. And also the leaders that take care of families, and the leaders that are looking to say, how do we prepare to hand what's valuable, what's useful to the next generation so that they can shape it for what they need and move it forward. It's not about stuff staying the same. It's about the things that work being able to continue to move forward, to persevere rather than just be preserved. And that's kind of what I really love to do, is just reach out, not only to people who are in leadership roles, who are trying to, how do I sustain my leadership? How do I keep going when there's so many challenges in my life, and share that, but the people who have a dream of being able to contribute and make a difference, and they don't even think of themselves as leaders. They just want to step into that kind of role of leadership. Because, for me, leadership isn't about, well, I want to be a leader, who can I lead? It's, and I've always made this joke because I'm a Leo, and the archetype of a Leo is that they just always like to be out in front. And my joke is that that's not why we end up out in front. It's more like, I see this thing that really needs to get done. Can we just get going? Can we just go now and get that done? Because it would be really great when it's done. And that's kind of how I see leadership, as it doesn't, of course, matter what your zodiac sign is, but it's that desire to see something that would make such a difference, and to contribute to it, and to be part of it. And that's really what I see is the gift of coaching. It's the opportunity for me to be with remarkable people who are stepping up and saying, I want to contribute, I want to make a difference, and I want to contribute, and I want to make a difference to people who are ready to do that. And for me, that's really the beauty of coaching, is that what I'm learning from my coaches is there's lots more levels yet of expanding awareness and remarkable people and things that I haven't even imagined yet. And so I know that there's lots more ahas waiting, not only on my journey, but there's a lot of ahas waiting for you. Thank you very much.